For Patrick Dreiling of Land O'Lakes, Florida, life is about spending time with those you love and helping others whenever possible.
I grew up and I was in sports quite a bit. I was an athletic trainer. I was offensive quality control with the Miami Dolphins. I was at Florida State with Coach Bowden when he won his first national championship, along with my wife, who was a recruiting secretary. After that, when my son was born, I moved on and I'm now working for Verizon. And so basically, I'm an analyst for Verizon, sales metrics, etc. My off time basically consists of a lot of water sports, scuba diving, fishing, always on a boat. I try to help out a lot. I should spend more time in church, but instead I opt to spend my time helping others that would need it. And in my neighborhood, that opportunity is available, so I try to take advantage of it. Whether it's cutting trees down with chainsaws, helping anybody, pressure washing, whatever it is that they might need.
Though Patrick's heart is in the right place, it seems this year his body was rebelling against him. His wife Marla also sat down with the AMT crew to tell us about her husband's history with nagging back pain.
About 3.5 years ago, he was having lots of back pain, so he went to an orthopedic. They did an MRI and said he had a problem with L1, L2. They could inject him or he could just take it easy. So he chose to take it easy. In those 3.5 years, he's had lots of back pain. It'll just come on and he'll have to take it slow, can't do his normal daily activities, and then it'll go away. So on March 10th, he was sitting in the living room chair talking to people. And his back had started hurting about 2 weeks prior to that. So he'd been taking it slow and everything. And he's sitting in a chair and just started screaming, help me, get me out of this. And we were trying to help him and he's just in pain. That pain did not go away until the day he had surgery.
The Dreilings went to the emergency room in search of help, but Patrick was only given a variety of medications and then sent home.
The pain that I felt was basically across my lower back. It would radiate down into my hamstrings and in my quads, down my right calf. It was like pins and needles. Sometimes it would go numb. The spasming and the cramping were probably the worst part because they were uncontrollable and I didn't know the duration of them. And the only thing that would give me any benefit was just loading myself up with ice.
So all I did was put ice on, 20 minutes later take it off, get it cold again, and screaming, like get all the ice out of the freezer and lay it on me. He has ice burns because he would move it and just put it on his skin, and that didn't even hurt him. That's how much pain he was in.
Just imagine a Charlie horse in your calf that kept coming on for 3 weeks. So it was pretty painful. And like I said, it just wasn't me that felt that pain and had to care for that pain. It was my wife as well. I deteriorated to the point that I was on multiple medications. I was on a muscle relaxer for my muscles. I was on a muscle relaxer for the nerves. I was taking steroids. In 3 weeks, I had lost over 17 pounds. I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't turn right or left. My wife would feed me medication. She would drop them in my mouth. I would drink out of a straw, and I would go back to sleep if I could.
Probably every 5 minutes, he was screaming for more drugs, even though it wasn't within the 4-hour period.
Unannounced, I would have these spasms and so forth that restricted me to bed, and I would scream. My wife would come in, put ice packs from basically my knees all the way up to my lower back. At one point, I had a brother-in-law came in, and they were helping me to the bathroom because it was not a one-man show at this point. And he says, "Pat, I can see your lower back spasming." He goes, "This is crazy." He had never seen anything like that. My wife was in tears because she was my sole caregiver. She's about 113 pounds, and here she is, the only one in the home that could care for me, trying to help me. She was in tears. I know she was in tears. I know we had the rescue squad there at one point to get me off of the floor. They had to remind me of this because I didn't even remember it. I went to physical therapy one time. I don't even remember that, just because of all the drugs that I wanted. So I really was not coherent enough to make valued decisions for my own health care. And that's where a lot of that weight fell on my wife.
It was terrible seeing my husband in that amount of pain because, like I said, he's not one to lay around or complain. He's always on the move. He's ready to help anyone. And it was horrible. Screams of pain, it was real. It was real, and it was heartbreaking.
Desperate to find her husband some relief, Marla made a call to the Bonati Spine Institute after hearing a recommendation from a friend.
I had a friend call me just because he had known I was in bad pain. At that point, I asked him, his wife had had surgery in December. I said, who did you use? Tell me a little bit, did they have a good experience? He said, yes, it was the Bonati Spine Institute. He says, you got to check them out. My wife called on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., Dr. Bonati was speaking to my wife. On Thursday, I had an appointment at the Bonati Spine Institute. I walked in. From the moment I used my walker to get in, I could only go about 3 inches at a time, shuffling. I was unable to sit down. They put me in a special room that allowed them to do the evaluations while I was in there. Dr. Bonati got out of the surgery at about noon, and he came directly into my room, looked at the MRIs from 3.5 years ago and the MRI from just a week and a half ago. And at that point, he said, we need to do surgery right away. He says, if this thing bursts, you could be paralyzed. Now, my wife, who was looking to go pick up girls from school at the point, we had no idea we were going to go into surgery. So basically, I shook Dr. Bonati's hand, and within 10 minutes, I was scheduled for surgery, and I was in surgery 2 hours later.
Due to the severity of Patrick's lumbar spine disc herniation and the risks involved if it wasn't treated, it was imperative that Patrick undergo a procedure as soon as possible. Shortly after his consultation with Dr. Bonati, Patrick was prepped and taken back into surgery.
He noticed my x-ray and the problems that I'm having, and he found it so severe that we're basically moving directly from that initial visit into the operating room to care for this, because he said that there would be a potential of being paralyzed.
When I was getting onto the operating table, they put me prone on my stomach, and it was the first time I can remember being on my stomach in forever, and that pain was not fun. From that point, because I had been taking so many drugs, they had to really dial me in to where I needed to be able to communicate back and forth with them. Being awake, I don't think you can say you were completely awake, so it didn't bother you as much. Afterwards, you don't remember any of it. But at the time, I did provide them feedback as to what I felt, or just basically answering their questions. When I got up off the operating table, Dr. Bonati was there, and I was communicating with him. And then he says, okay, I want you to get up off the table. And I was being assisted, but I was thinking, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt bad. And I stood up, and there was no pain. That was the first moment. I was like, oh, wow. I was waiting for it to start all over again, and nothing happened. By 4:30, I was standing up. I was walking out of there. I couldn't believe it.
Though Patrick's case was unique, both he and Marla were able to see immediate results and finally breathe a sigh of relief that he would no longer have to live another day in agonizing pain.
And then he says, oh, okay, there's your wife. I want you to walk to your wife. She was about 20 feet from me. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. He wanted me to do this. I started walking. I took about 2 steps, and again, I didn't have the excruciating pain. By the 3rd step, I had a huge smile, and then I saw the huge smile on my wife's face. It was a moment in life that I'll never forget.
Blew my mind, because when he walked into that place, 4 hours or 6 hours earlier, he had a walker. He could barely open his eyes because of the pain. It hurt to even open your eyes. I had to help him even to get over a threshold, a small little threshold with trying to walk. Is walking to me unassisted, just pushing his IV thing, and it blew me away.
It was amazing, and I had tremendous hope at that point, because I had been living for 3 weeks one way, and now all of a sudden, as quick as I had become bad and had to live with it, it was that quick to become good again and have hope and be pain-free. It was amazing.